Hello, and welcome to my presentation on the rise of the High Priestess, Hildegard of Bingen, Helena Blavatsky, and Moina Mathers. Today I will discuss these three notable historical women whom I found to match the High Priestess archetype. In the tarot deck, the High Priestess is the second card. She stands for the subconscious, the divine feminine, and intuition, symbolized by the crescent moon on her skirts. She is an esoteric scholar, which is also shown by the scrolls she holds in her hands. The initials B and J, which stand for the Hebrew phrase Boaz Yakin, meaning, in his strength he will establish, were said to have been inscribed on two pillars at the entrance to the legendary Temple of Solomon. All three women in this presentation were fluent in symbology, such as the one that is abundant in tarot cards. All three were also clairvoyant and used their abilities to tap into the hidden realms and workings of nature. Finally, all three rose to high priestess status in their respective religions. Hildegard of Bingen was a German abbess in the Middle Ages. Helena Blavatsky, a 19th century New Age guru who founded her own spiritual movement known as Theosophy. And Moina Mathers, the female head of the secret society, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. We begin with Hildegard of Bingen, a German medieval Christian mystic, visionary, prophetess, writer, visual artist, philosopher, composer, linguist, herbalist, and an overall polymath. Having experienced mystical visions from childhood, her parents placed her in a convent, as was common in those days. There, she eventually grew to become a full abbess. Unprecedented for women at that time, she was able to impress the great churchmen and popes with her powerful personality and visionary theology. So she traveled dressed as Lady Philosophy, known by the nickname Sibyl of the Rhine. Shown here is one of her paintings, depicting her eyes being touched by a higher power. Hildegard made illustrations and explanations of her mystical visions, which were colorful and animated like myths, although her accompanying explanations were strongly religious. In fact, a modern reader might struggle to make the same symbolic connections she attributed to some of the images in the visions. This could be partly due to her devout religious upbringing, but also because visionary experience disconnected from Christianity would be considered heretic in those times. For example, Marguerite Porete was another French mystic who didn't anchor her explanations in religion, and as a result was burned at the stake. The circle was also heavily present in Hildegard's art, being a common medieval representation of divinity. Later also resonant in Carl Jung's mandalas, which represented the individual's higher self. Many of Hildegard's visions describe elaborate systems of different layers and complex processes. For example, on the left is the cosmic egg with different layers of colored fire and different events and emotions ascribed to each. This gives the impression of some kind of an ecology with atmospheric layers of a planet, or perhaps the different etheric planes of the universe. And on the right is the angelic hierarchy, with different types of angelic beings found in each layer. Her visions likewise conveyed the theme of collective consciousness, or the world soul. For example, in these two visions, she described the same giant woman who is strong and cannot be destroyed, encompassing crowds of different kinds of people. We get the impression that she's speaking of the anima mundi, or Mother Earth, as a personification. Hildegard also became known for her studies of the natural world, animals, plants, and minerals. She wrote nearly alchemical explanations of herbal concoctions and qualities, which sounded similar to witchery. Through these studies, she elevated the principle of viriditas, greenness or green vigor, which she described as the vital force pulsing through everything. Again, it's unusual that the Church did not frown upon this natural practice and vitalist ideas. Hildegard also composed over 69 musical compositions. She described music similarly to how modern phenomenology describes it, understanding that notes blend into one another as into one field, despite initially appearing as separate units. She thus made the analogy between music and oceanic thinking, a kind of non-linear intuitive logic of subjective experience, rather than the linear mechanical logics that modern materialistic science prescribes to. Finally, Hildegard is credited as the inventor of the first artificial language, known as lingua ignota, which had its own alphabet and over 1,000 words, described by linguists to have a bouncy, sing-song feel. It's not clear why she created this language, perhaps as a hobby, but more than likely, again, intending to extend communication into mystical logic. The next high priestess I will speak about is Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, who is widely credited as the founder of the modern New Age movement. In her original conception, the spiritual and philosophical movement she introduced was named Theosophy. Because it was interested in consciousness and psychic phenomena, Theosophy attracted a lot of creative thinkers like William Butler Yeats and Wassily Kandinsky. Also, rather than follow the rigid dogma of one religious doctrine, Theosophy combined principles from numerous spiritual traditions: Christianity, Gnosticism, Kabbalah, Buddhism, Hinduism, Rosicrucianism, Freemasonry, Greek philosophy. She was especially fond of Plato, Egyptian magic, Hermeticism, and alchemy, and the writings of modern magicians like Eliphas Levi. Blavatsky's ultimate goal was to thoroughly research the past to uncover the occult mysteries of the world. In her introductory book, Isis Unveiled, published in 1877, Blavatsky covered themes like magic, symbology, sacred geometry, the cosmic cycles of time, a classification of spirits, metempsychosis and reincarnation, space-time and causality, will and materializations, the universal soul and evolution. Her knowledge was impressive, and the personality conveyed through her language that of a gallant and empowered leader. This is a quote from her book about the concept of ether, or astral light, which was traditionally defined as the alchemical fifth element. A modern philosophical metaphor for ether could be anything from virtual space, hidden dimensions, implicate order, subtle matter, quantum light, and so on. And it's something crucial to understanding clairvoyance and psi phenomena, in my opinion. There has been an infinite confusion of names to express one and the same thing: the chaos of the ancients, the Zoroastrian sacred fire, or the Atas Behram of the Parsis, the Hermes fire, the St. Elmo's fire of the ancient Germans, the lightning of Cybele, the burning torch of Apollo, the flame on the altar of Pan, the inextinguishable fire in the temple on the Acropolis and in that of Vesta, the fire flame of Pluto's helm, the brilliant sparks on the hats of the Dioscuri, on the Gorgon head, the helm of Pallas, and the staff of Mercury, the Egyptian Ptah, or Ra, the Grecian Zeus Kataibatis, the descending, the Pentecostal fire tongues, the burning bush of Moses, the pillar of fire of the Exodus, and the burning lamp of Abram, the eternal fire of the bottomless pit, the Delphic oracular vapors, the sidereal light of the Rosicrucians, the Akasha of the Hindu adepts, the astral light of Eliphas Levi, the nerve aura and the fluid of the magnetism, the odd of Reichenbach, the atmospheric magnetism of some naturalists, galvanism, and finally electricity. In this quote, it's obvious that Blavatsky skillfully perceives one archetype through various seemingly unconnected mythological concepts, and that she's very studied in history, myth, and even science. Interestingly, Blavatsky explained that her teachings were channeled from a group of enlightened spirit or ascended masters, all of whom had lived previous human and saintly lives on Earth and had ascended after death. Now, many people assume that she invented these masters, but I can tell you that I've had random autonomous visions of them too. So, from my experience at least, I believe they are real earthly spirit guides. Auras were another esoteric concept espoused by Blavatsky, described as the subtle, invisible electromagnetic essences or fluids radiating from all living bodies that can be visible to clairvoyant senses. Later, Blavatsky's work influenced the work of other clairvoyants and theosophists like Rudolf Steiner and Charles Webster Leadbeater, who elaborated on auras. Here I describe an experience that occurred to me. These 4 photographs appeared in my phone one day while I was in the pocket of my backpack. At first glance, I thought this might have been due to a phone glitch or the camera going off by itself. But each shot in the series had a color distinct from the others, and the special pattern of the last one, which resembled the esoteric symbol of the flower of life. Then I remembered that in the past few days I encountered a specific website which featured colored aura diagrams for a large list of ascended masters. So I consulted this website to see if I could match each image to a certain ascended master aura. But what I found is that each one was more like a blend of 2 auras. In a similar way, the flower of life symbol is showing us that auras can superimpose and blend on each other. Then, about a year later, I suddenly saw a flash of blue in my mind. A few moments after, I looked in my phone gallery and the image on the left was again recorded there. So again, there's the white, gray, and blue aura of Archangel Charity, as if peeking in from the bottom of the picture. And the second blue circle, which I did not see till a few months later, in the center of the picture, matches that aura of El Maria, the master of divine will. And these two are a little bit more spatially separated. And as well, the colors are very clearly matching to the images from the website. The final high priestess is Moina Mathers, whose birth name was Mina Bergson, and esoteric nickname Never Retrace My Steps. She was the actual high priestess of the secret society of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was based on Rosicrucian principles, Kabbalah, and ancient Egyptian magic practices. Moina was initiated into the Golden Dawn through marriage to her husband Samuel MacGregor Mathers, who was the co-founder of the society. After being trained in clairvoyance, she quickly excelled at it and began to host metaphysical salons, during which she would take full astral, out-of-body visionary journeys. Scrying, astral work, and spirit vision were additional names to describe this practice. The descriptions of these journeys are fascinating. Moina could diagnose ailments of the astral body, examine past lives, summon spirit guides and archetypes, erect psychic boundaries, and in general, obtain information from various spiritual terrains and realms. One specific technique in accessing these realms were the tattva cards, borrowed from Vedic philosophy, shown here on the right. This set of symbols combine basic colors and shapes. Focusing on a particular card, the clairvoyant would enter a trance and hence into the specific archetypal realm associated with the symbol. On the left is a drawing I made of a vision I had of Moina while I was researching all of this. The Merkaba shape on her torso is the Kabbalah symbol for the human light body, which was described as a chariot or vehicle that facilitated the soul to astral travel. So you can see the symbols of gold, astral travel, and woman clearly came through in this image. Besides their scrying work, Moina and Samuel also put on full-blown performances at a public theater in Paris, honoring the Egyptian goddess Isis. Samuel called himself the Hierophant Ramses, and Moina the High Priestess Anari, These dramatic shows not only depicted ritualistic magic and goddess worship, the pair also used them as an actual teaching method to convey Golden Dawn's principles to the audiences. Mina was also the sister of the famous philosopher Henry Bergson, with her amazing theories of time, memory, images, and planes of consciousness. His amazing theories. I believe he did for philosophy something similar that Carl Jung did for psychology. He famously debated Einstein as well. Likewise, the psychologist William James once stated, "My Bergson, you are a magician." So the magician being the first card of tarot and High Priestess the second, I think these siblings made an incredibly archetypally powered contribution to the study of the mind. Mina contributed further by pushing past Henry's innate fear of images and symbols. There's no time to go through the whole list, but these are some other names for women mystics and clairvoyants, both from the medieval Christian times, other women from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and several others from other traditions and cultures, although there are probably many more as well. And I will end this presentation by showing you one example of the kind of research I do, where a visual synchronicity is spontaneously captured in a resemblance between two images. One is some form of artwork, and another some natural photograph, which I happen to take. So one day, I made this artwork of the High Priestess as a logo using AI. I was using it for my Zoom logo meetings. The next day, while sitting on the beach with my mom, I looked up and saw what's known as a sundog, a full circular halo around the sun. Only there were actually two of these sundogs or halos. And then I remembered that the image I created with AI of the High Priestess the day before also spontaneously created two white rings on a blue background. And I thought this was definitely a sign that the High Priestess energy was in my life watching over me, for which I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and these are my references.